Hello and welcome to Everybody Pulls the Tarp. I'm your host, Andrew Moses. My guest today, Mike O'Connor, former Major League pitcher. I don't know, Mike, if you pulled the tarp in your minor league days, but we'll certainly talk about pulling the tarp leadership and teamwork here today. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thanks for having me, Andrew. We definitely have pulled some tarps back in college. I don't think we did it in pro ball, but definitely in college we did have to pull the tarp. So thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. To get started, I want to go even further back than your college days. Was there a moment as a youngster when you felt like, hey, I'm pretty good at baseball, or I'm a pretty good pitcher. I might be able to do this for a living?
That probably wasn't until college that I felt like I had a chance to play pro ball. I mean, I played with a bunch of guys in high school that were really good players. I graduated high school with Mark Teixeira, who was a potential first round pick out of high school, and he went on to be a first round pick out of college. And he was head and shoulders above where I was at as a player in high school. And finally, once I got to college and kind of physically caught up to everybody, I felt like I was in a place where I was going to have a chance to play professionally.
So often elite athletes like yourself talk about sacrifices. When they reflect on their career, they talk about sacrifices that they made. They talk about sacrifices that their family made. When you think back, what were some of the sacrifices that you made in order to continue your development as a ball player?
Yeah, I mean, I think, looking back, you don't realize how much you give up to do something like that, and how much support I needed from my family, my wife and girlfriend during college and things like that. So there's so much that goes into it. But I mean, I think just looking back in high school, I played baseball all summer. College, went away and put all my focus into baseball. I mean, I think some of that, definitely, helped me get to where I was at. And I think, without all of that sacrifice, things wouldn't happen the way they did.
So you and I, Mike, have talked a bunch over the last few months about this show. This show is called Everybody Pulls the Tarp. It's all based upon a philosophy that I have, that great teams and great organizations are powered by individuals who contribute in unexpected ways, go way outside the boundaries of their job description. So when you think about yourself as an athlete, and we'll get to, I think in a little bit, your career, your new career post retirement from baseball. But when you think about your baseball career, you think about great teammates that you've had, you think about great coaches that you've had. What are the small things that those individuals do that make, in your mind, a big difference?
Just thinking back to some of the coaches that I was fortunate to be around, I think just really, taking an interest in the players, off the field and things like that. I was fortunate to work with some really good people throughout my career. There's so many guys that were pitching coaches through college, high school, and then in pro ball as well. But I mean, I think just treating people like human beings and makes a big difference in professional sports. Sometimes there's so many guys and they're turning through so many people, and I think the coaches that really took time to get to know the players made a big difference. I mean, I think that was something that in some organizations did that better than others. I mean, I played with a bunch of organizations to see how differently they all function was interesting.
I know you and the way you operate in the business world these days, and you're super relationship oriented. Do you think that some of that is something that you've translated from those experiences?
Definitely. I mean, I think I think you're going to, work better with people that you trust and want to be around. And I think that's, something that I've, have learned during my, baseball career and professional career, that I think is something, that I've a skill that I've tried to bring with me into the business world for sure.
Was there a teammate, either coming through the minor league system or when you debuted in the big leagues in 2006 with the Nationals, that you said, hey, that's a teammate that I want to emulate, or I want to not necessarily emulate from a standpoint of maybe the style in which you play, or maybe they weren't a pitcher, but somebody that you said, I like the way that individual goes about their business?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was definitely 2006 we had a pretty veteran heavy team with the Nationals. I mean, there's a lot of guys that had been around a long time, and coming up there, I basically went from A ball in 2005 in high A to the big leagues the next year in 2006. So it was definitely a steep learning curve. It's a big jump quickly, but a lot of we had a veteran pitching staff. Ramon Ortiz was one guy that really spent a lot of time with me and hang out with him at the hotel and just talk to him. And he'd pitched a long time in the big leagues. Levon Hernandez. I mean, he was very smart guy and had been around the league for a long time, and somebody that I would always talk to in between starts and things like that. And then there were several other guys on that team, just kind of helping you figure out what it's going to take to be successful at that level. And then the coaching staff, obviously is there to assist you with anything you need.
So you talk about a pretty significant jump there from, I guess it was high A ball to the big leagues next year. Obviously, the Nationals at that point they were bringing some great talent through the system. What's that jump like in terms of how it recalibrates you?
I would say as a pitcher, I mean, you're pretty much able. I think it's easier to make a jump quicker. If you're, the zone and the batters obviously improve, but I mean, at the end of the day, your job is just to execute pitches and do what you can do. I mean, I think if you overthink it and think you have to be perfect, it's going to be much harder. But I mean, I think as a pitcher, you can make jumps pretty quick if you're, able to execute your pitches consistently.
People see Mike, they see the pitcher. Well, in the case of a starter, they see generally they'll see you generally every fifth day. As a reliever, they'll see you a little bit more. But what they don't see is what's going on behind the scenes. And this is something that's always fascinated me. I mean, I've made trips down to Port St. Lucie to see the Mets at spring training and see some other teams train. And that's an interesting glimpse into the work and the energy that goes on behind the scenes to the overall product. But what happens in the 4 days in between starts that people don't see in terms of the work that goes into it?
I mean, I think that's the time where you can really, stay consistent, right? I mean, a lot of that is staying in shape. You got to, keep your conditioning and strength up during that time. As a starting pitcher, I mean, you have that routine, but it's really a time, and you have the ability to throw bullpens in between starts and kind of work on certain things that maybe you're struggling with, whether it's, I don't know, holding runners or a certain pitch that's giving you a tough time or some pitch you're looking to add. So, I mean, I think as a starting pitcher, you do have a lot of ability to improve during the season and do a lot on that 5-day schedule for sure.
How do you balance the desire to improve without disrupting what's working well? Is there a point where it's disruptive?
Yeah, I mean, you still need to focus on your strengths, right? What got you to the big leagues? What's making you successful? I mean, what's allowing you to, get people out? I mean, you don't want to get away from that too far, right? But I mean, if it's, adding a fourth pitch or something else you want to work on, I mean, I think that's the time when you're able to spend some energy on that. I mean, yeah, you can't throw a ton in between starts because you got to prepare for that next game and you don't want to be worn down. So I think just being smart about how you're going about that.
I know when I was pulling the tarp, working in minor league baseball, there were always guys running up and down the stadium staircases in between starts. I thought that was interesting. Did you have an interesting, unique workout?
Usually we do like a 30-minute run the day after and lift. I mean, it just depends on where you're at. I mean, usually I would run around the field. I don't know, maybe I was boring, but that's, you knew it was about a quarter mile around the field and you get your, I don't know, 12 or 15 laps around the field and call it a day on the day after. So I don't know. I always knew that was, about a quarter mile around.
So Mike, I want to get to your MLB debut in a little bit, but so you go to GW University, George Washington University, you graduate with a finance degree. What was the experience like going to college? Did you go to college thinking, hey, I'm gonna try and make the jump to professional baseball, or was that an afterthought? Talk about that for a minute.
No, I mean, I definitely went there to go to school first. I mean, I went to GW as a a recruited walk-on the baseball team. I mean, we were a pretty good program. I mean, we won the A-10 my senior year. But no, I didn't go there with the expectation, I was going to be a high draft pick or anything like that. And I think that's, I think just coming out of high school, I mean, I wasn't in a position where that was something that I was counting on. I mean, back in my mind, I'm hoping that works out. But I mean, I didn't get drafted out of high school. I had some schools that were willing to offer me scholarships, but at the end of the day, I felt like GW was the best fit academically, and I really liked the coaches and the program there. I felt like it was somewhere that I could go and compete right away, and we had a program that could potentially win our conference, and that's what I wanted to do.
So as you and I have talked about, lots, I talk to a lot of elite performers in all walks of life, sports, entertainment, business on this show. And everybody talks about a mindset, right? This competitive mindset. At what point does your mindset change at GW? Or does it change where you say, okay, I might be able to do this professionally? Does the pressure increase? Does the way you go about your business change at all at that point?
I mean, honestly, when I was in college, I mean, we had a pretty good culture on our team. I mean, there wasn't a lot of focus on. I didn't really focus on myself. I mean, I just worked hard to try to help our team win. I mean, honestly, that was like our goal. We had a really close team, and I always felt like if we won as a team, things would take care of themselves. And we were able, my junior year, we had a really good team. We were one win away from winning our conference tournament, and then finally our senior year, we won it, and we got 7 guys drafted. And I think all through college, and we were just focused on the goal as a team of winning, and things worked out how they should.
It's a really interesting thought, right? I mean, if you win as a team, it tends to, the individual accolades and notoriety tend to take care of itself in many instances.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the experience I had in high school, I mean, as far as like scouts coming to see me, just being around, just graduating high school with Mark Share and having all these scouts around, it wasn't something that I was like, oh, I have to do this. I know they're going to, people are going to come to certain games and they're going to see what they want to see, right? So, I mean, there was a certain point halfway through my senior year that, there was scouts that came to watch me, and then things like that. But it wasn't like I had 30 scouts there. There may be 4 or 5 guys that came one day to make sure they saw me pitch. So I think just focusing on winning, but not letting that be a distraction, I think is, the best way to kind of go about that.
When I talked to former MLB star Todd Zeal on this show a number of months ago, he talked about a concept called this between the lines. When you're between, elite athletes have this ability that when you're between the lines, everything else, generally speaking, the distractions swirling around you, what they're saying about you in the media, the fact that scouts are sitting in the crowd, perhaps when you're between the lines, you're doing what you've been doing since you were maybe 5, 6, 7 years old, and it's a lot easier for an elite athlete. Do you subscribe to that?
Definitely. I mean, I think, the big thing, the mental part of the game is huge. The thing that, I was always taught is just kind of stay in the present, right? If you're thinking about something other than executing that one pitch or something like that in the game as a hitter, that one, making a good swing. I mean, I think you're overcomplicating it, right? Keep it really simple and just stay in that one moment, I think is the key, right? If you start thinking too much, oh, what's that guy watching me thinking about me right now or this, it gets really tough to perform at a high level.
Were there catchers, or throughout your career that were really helpful in driving that mindset, keeping you focused on the next pitch, or was that something that you just have to internalize as a pitcher and do yourself?
No, I mean, I think there's definitely a handful of catchers that I threw to. I mean, I was never like the number one starter where I would have like a personal catcher or anything like that. A lot of times I was the guy that'd give the backup catcher to, or something, give the starter the
day game after the night game.
So I think just being flexible with that. But I mean, I think kind of, picking those guys' brains that did it for a long time, and going up to higher levels early on. I mean, it was basically, the catcher knew what I could do, and I just kind of had to follow them. When you're throwing a young player throwing to veteran guys, they don't want to see you shaking them off a lot. They game plan a lot of times more with the catcher than the pitcher, just because they want them to kind of control the game. And a lot of that has changed, since I've finished playing. I mean, they've got even more in depth with these scouting reports and all the planning they're doing for these games.
So let's talk about the big moment that every young baseball player dreams of. 2006, you make that major league debut. What's that experience like?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a once in a lifetime thing. I mean, it's a thing, at the end of 2005, I was like, I think I'm, close. I didn't get put on the roster, didn't get invited to big league camp, but, I was the minor league pitcher of the year in 2005. And I was like, all right, I think I'm close. I felt close. And they bumped me from high A to to start the year in AAA, and started off pretty well there, pitched, 4 good games there. And then they had some injuries on the big league staff. And, I got the call from my pitching coach at the time, Steve McCaddy, and my manager, Tim Foley. And they told me I was going to the big leagues to pitch on, I think it was a Thursday or something like that. And, it's definitely a surreal moment. I mean, going to St. Louis, that was the first year of their new stadium. I remember the day before, St. Louis was playing a day game. I'm sitting in my apartment in New Orleans watching that game, and then flying out later that night to go to St. Louis to pitch the next day. And it's just, I don't know, it's a crazy moment. I walk into the clubhouse, you meet Frank Robinson, who was the manager of the Nationals at the time. I mean, I grew up an Oriole fan, so I never saw him play, but he's a Hall of Fame player and known to be a pretty intimidating guy. And just walking into the clubhouse was definitely a pretty cool experience.
So later that year, Father's Day, I believe it was, you pitch a fabulous game. I believe you go 7 innings, give up 1 earned run. But later in that game, Ryan Zimmerman hits, what became an iconic walk-off home run. I think the first walk-off home run in the team's history. What was that experience like, being part of that day?
Yeah, I mean, playing the Yankees at that time, I mean, they had as good a team as anybody in the league. I mean, it was super deep lineup. I mean, it was all probably multiple Hall of Famers in that lineup, and a lot of Yankee Hall of Famers. And it was a big deal. Sold out stadium at RFK. We didn't play to a lot of packed houses back then, but it was interleague play was still a little newer. And no, so just looking back, I mean, they replayed that game this last year, and the first time I really watched it since it happened, really. And just, I don't know, to be a part of that, that was a big moment for me. I mean, at the time as a player, you don't really think about that, but looking back, like, oh, that was pretty cool. I had a really good game, pitched 7 innings, I think gave up 1 run, and then the Yankees came back and tied it, and then and Zim hit the walk off, and it was just at that time it was a big moment for the franchise just to win, have such a moment, and it was cool to be a part of that for sure.
As we think about, we talk a lot about leadership and teamwork and just great cultures and great organizations on this show. When you think about that walk-off home run or any walk-off moment like that for a team, it's this iconic moment. How does a moment like that start to change the culture in any way? Did it create momentum that maybe hadn't existed before? I mean, I remember it. It was a big moment when Zim hit that home run.
I mean, I think it was exciting for the franchise. I mean, for Zim as a player, I mean, I think it's one of those things that kind of, starts to build his reputation as a clutch player. And, I think, at that point, the team had a long way to go to where it is now, as a contender every year. But I think, I don't know. I mean, baseball is a crazy game and anything can happen on any day. And I think it just, I don't know. It was one of the few bright spots from that season. I mean, we started to play pretty well middle of the season, and got to close to 500 at one point. But it was there were some other teams that had some deeper lineups, and we did that year for sure.
So your career starts, and then it's a little bit, in terms of injuries. You have to go back down to the minors a bit. You got to work your way back, rehabbing some injuries. elbow surgery. What's that experience like? I think, when I think about resiliency and the mental side of anything, right? When you reach that place that you're striving for, and then it gets taken away from you, either due to injury or for some other reason, how does that impact you, and how do you navigate that?
I think it definitely wears on you. Rehabbing from an injury, mentally, you feel good, but your body just won't let you do something, right? Yeah, I had elbow surgery, and basically after 2006, I had to almost start over again because like the whole next year was almost a wash. And then finally the next year when I came to spring training, velocity came back and things were close back to normal. But you just never, you don't know what's going to happen, right? Your arm is so fragile as a pitcher. And, if you just lose, like for me, I wasn't a guy that could go out there and compete at 85, 90%. I needed to be, I just didn't have that velocity and stuff if I wasn't 100% to compete at the highest level. So it definitely, I don't know, makes you not want to take things for granted. I think, you just never know how long something's going to last.
Rehabbing a baseball injury in particular has always been interesting to me, because so often, especially now, you see the players are sent, if it's during the season, they're sent to rehab at the minor league facility in Florida or in Arizona. They're away from the team in many instances. You're kind of isolated. You might be, with a couple of other guys rehabbing, but I was thinking about it recently in the context of what many of us are dealing with right now, this isolation due to the pandemic, and the social distancing, and that, the colleagues that I work with on a daily basis, we're all in different locations. There's not that camaraderie that you would get, let's say, in your world in baseball in a clubhouse. Talk about that for a minute. Is it isolating?
Definitely. I remember, being down in Florida. This is 2007, but there was a handful. There was, two or three other guys that were on the big league DL, and we were rehabbing down there. But you're used to, you start the season, you have a game every night, and then now your game is to go into the training room and do arm exercises and ice your arm, and then you're done by noon, right? I was at the field from, I don't know, 8:30 to 12 o'clock each day, and I'd be done. And then you're just, hanging out in your apartment. There's nobody around, it's just, I don't know. It's just, it just definitely wears on you. For me, I felt like I was, missing out on my opportunity to kind of establish myself as a big leaguer. But at the end of the day, you got to just kind of focus on what you need to do. But it does wear on you. I don't think it's perfect how teams do it. Sending guys away from the team, you kind of lose your support system. And I think they've always done it that way. They don't want guys, being too comfortable on the DL, right? They don't want you to stay on there. But I do think it is a tough thing. It definitely tests you as a player for sure.
Now, don't get me wrong. I love Port St. Lucie, Florida. It's one of my favorite places on the earth, but it's got to be lonely certain times of year.
Yeah, at the time the Nats were in Melbourne or Vieira, Florida, and once spring training ended and all the people from up north went home, it's pretty quiet there, right? So there's not a whole lot going on down there.
That's right. So let's before I let you go, Mike, I want to talk about what you're doing now and the transition to the business world that you made. So you retire from baseball, and you're essentially launching a new career. Talk about what you're doing the last couple of years here.
Yeah, after baseball, baseball was definitely my passion, but at some point I was going to have to do something else, and I have my degree in finance from GW, but definitely have that competitive drive, so, I've gotten into the world of sales and have been in the insurance brokerage world the last 4 years. I'm with Assured Partners. We were early Cassidy and Schilling, but Assured Partners purchased this early this year. And essentially, I work with business owners, high net worth individuals, and some professional athletes. So kind of do a bunch of different things. But the one thing that I've really found in sales that I think's been key for my success is really just finding ways that I can provide value outside of just helping somebody place their insurance, helping them grow their business, helping them with contacts and things like that. And that's the part that I've, really enjoyed, and you feel like you're part of a team again. And it's been a good fit for me. And, being in sales, I think, a lot of the skills that I learned through sports, have allowed me to transition into this world, dealing with pressure, dealing with problems and things like that. Something that I'm used to doing.
And the relationships, to kind of bring it full circle to where we started. The relationships that you formed through baseball, those coaches, those organizations that take time to build relationships with players. It's in many ways it's what you're doing right now for your clients and your partners in the marketplace.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, relationships are huge. I mean, I think, especially in insurance where, we're a broker and, a lot of our competitors can provide the same products. I mean, I think, being able to do other things and understanding your client is really our advantage.
Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you here the last few minutes. I thank you for joining Everybody Pulls the Tarp, and let's catch up again soon.
Thanks, Andrew.